hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
You see what this hat says?
Does it say Menzel is what it does? The professor. The professor in the merch game.
The merch is solid too.
That's
I mean, it's a little bit different style of hat. It's got the drawstring in the back.
interesting. Is that a what you call a 5-panel hat?
I don't know. Let me see. One, two, three. Looks like six. One, two, three, four, five, six panels.
Man, leave it to Professor Menzel to take the 5-panel hat, add one more panel and a drawstring.
You want one of these?
Heck yeah.
Which one?
Whichever one you don't want.
Okay. I've got, if anybody wants to see the hats, check it out on YouTube. We're on YouTube right now.
Is this theoretically to be worn in the surf? What we would call a surf hat?
I don't think so.
Good. Okay.
I think it would come off pretty easily.
Good. Dodging bullets there.
But it is the same one that Bruce Springsteen wore.
In the surf. Or
Not
in
just in life in Asbury Park. I saw a photo on Instagram of Bruce wearing this exact hat.
I need that hat. Me and the boss and the prof.
Good enough for the boss, good enough for you. Do you like the boss, by the way?
I do. Do you?
I do. I've grown to. Like,
Yeah.
I think he was so ubiquitous in my growing up years that it was like I almost just discounted him because I heard it just as often as I heard the Eagles.
Yep.
But now that I've gotten older, I'll hear some deep cuts occasionally, and I'm like, this song's amazing, you know? Or even Born in the USA, like the big hits are still incredible.
I went through one of those get a record player, like a vinyl record player, I don't know, 20 odd years ago. And the boss had I had some boss records, and yeah, it's his musicality is something else. Like maybe not underappreciated, seeing as one of the biggest still. How old is he? 75, 80?
Probably, yeah.
130? Yeah, but
130, I think.
He really is a musical talent, a treasure. And again, one of the things that make New Jersey, but specifically Asbury Park, my favorite place on earth.
Totally. So anybody who wants to grab Menzel merch or surfboard, you can find him. I don't know where. I don't know if it's menselsurfboards.com. I think it probably is, but Google that and they'll get you there. Or Menzel_surfboards on Instagram. I did a podcast with him a couple of weeks ago. And so then he sent me this merch after the fact with, by the way, not only a handwritten note, but written by their children. I don't think you can see it because the lighting's too harsh. But
so is it as nice as Britt Merrick's Fifi, the note she wrote to me?
That's right. I forgot about that. That is the secret way to people's hearts.
Yep. Have your kids. Britt Merrick's, I don't know why I keep calling him Brett this morning. Britt Merrick's daughter Fifi wrote me a note in case you have not listened to the Great Dead Debate podcast. That's basically said if I messed with her dad, she would come after me in my sleep.
In your sleep? Is that what it said?
It was said something like you will die. It was it was epic. It was epic. Die, even maybe.
Right. Yeah, that was funny. All right. Well, thanks, Menzel. I never wear hats, but I'm inclined to wear these just because they're slightly different than the usual hat. But speaking of dressing to impressing, we have email feedback from last week. I think it was last week's nighttime short. Night shorts.
I like that it's been total like whoever DM'd night shorts, it was a genius.
It was funny. So we got another listener who emailed and said, "Hey, David and Chaz, the grit September 21st." So yeah, last week. He said, "I dressed thoughtfully for dinner last night in my short-sleeved collared shirt, old jeans, and Birkenstocks. We had a school performance, and I didn't want to look like the teacher I am, as many fellow teachers would be there seeing their kids perform. I also didn't want to look like a tryhard. In addition, my partner, a glamorous ex-catwalk model / doctor, is always dressed impeccably. We arrived at the upmarket beachside Italian restaurant in East Ballina and are shown a seat by the Italian staff, and we have a beer. I watch a guy walk in thongs, shorts, cool Vans t-shirt, beard, and think, well, that must be the new cool. My partner thinks it's a homeless man. Anyways, I'm talking to my 8-year-old son about Coco Miller Brown's, by the way, I think her name is Mila Coco Brown, talk about her ripping and that a local surf mom agreed that she ripped but couldn't go backside. That's when I take a second look at the possibly homeless man and I realize it's Ashton Goggins.
Epic.
Anyway, anyhow, we get to the gig and my friends say, "Wow, you're dressed to impress. Keep work, Dan."
Love you, Dan. Thank you so much. Ashton and the Wild stories are not nearly as common as they should be on this program.
Did you? So he still hosts the No Contest series that Red Bull produces and Stab helps publish through their media outlet. Have
He
you
does?
watched any of them? Yeah.
Are they still coming out?
There's a brand new one out this week from Sydney.
Oh, no, I have not. I thought they went away, to be honest.
They do
Yeah,
a they
I haven't
do
seen one advertised or promoted in what feels like ever.
Yeah, so they do them in seasons. So they'll drop six and then wait, 6 months or 8 months or whatever, and then drop another six. So they just dropped the first of, I guess, what would be a new run. And I watched it. It's 20 minutes long. I really enjoy it. Like it really does a very good job of unpacking the local culture and showing you where the surf spots are and who the legends are and stuff like that. But inevitably, even Stab's own comments section rips Ashton apart. Like he cannot avoid it. And it's I don't want to say it's deserved, but his manner of speech is so affected
Yeah.
and his style is just so try hard, and that's what everybody's commenting on. um and what's interesting though is it's available for free. You can watch it on YouTube, but I first watched it on Stab, so I read all the comments on Stab. I had already gotten 8 comments and DMs about it, about Ashton basically.
Like making
And
fun of Ashton for being a
to-
tryhard? Poor guy.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like, Henry Rollins would punch you in your gut for wearing that Black Flag shirt and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or don't one of the funny ones on Stab was something to the effect of like, you better avoid more of those head dips, or otherwise it's going to vanquish what hair you have left, or something like that. So I laugh at that. I mean, it's all pretty funny, but then I pull up YouTube. I was curious. I'm like, man, Ashton really takes it on the chin, like through his own platform's commentary. So I go over to YouTube because I want to see if YouTube feels the same way. And there's nothing but praise on YouTube.
Good
Like
job.
YouTube does not have a negative opinion about Ashton at all. I think maybe Ashton, like the die was cast on Ashton long ago, and he's still feeling the effects of it in the surf world. But outside of the surf world, because I was wondering if the consensus is already in, I'm wondering why Red Bull hasn't replaced him as a host.
Yeah.
But then when you go look at YouTube and you go, this thing has 150,000 views in less than a couple of days, they seem to like him. And so Red
Yeah.
Bull doesn't have a problem.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that the surf world and the other world, like the Venn diagram there is very little, I think, overlap between surfers and the real world. Where, yeah, I mean, and I think it's what surfers are great for too, though, right? And I know that the skate culture has a similar sort of thing, probably twice as vicious as the surf one, but of like fun making and all this, I feel
Right.
are alive and well, and as they should be kept. Ashton totally deserves every bit of fun make that comes for him because he is uh he is a tryhard. Like he wants so badly to be liked, and that just oozes out of him. He wants to be liked by the people he's interviewing, by everyone. He craves it. He needs it. But I'm also glad though that the real world is like, well, you go out there and do a good job, young man. You
Yeah.
great. We're learning about Sydney, and this is just good. Like I'm glad for him. I'm glad that he has a soft spot there.
And yeah, I mean, he's found his way, or he's found
Anyway,
um, a path to earn a living and do what he loves,
great.
travel and surf. So,
Good job, Ashton Goggins.
well, along similar but different lines, Lunada Bay Boys feedback from last week. Hey, DLS and Chaz, wanted to send a quick note about those Bay Boys. My buddy and I have had a couple of run-ins with some of those guys over the years. Majority of them, it's a relatively small group, by the way, will just stare you down and ask, "What are you doing here?" and maybe try to scare you up the cliff at your car. There are one or two that are more outspoken and will act aggressive, but my biggest problem I've always had with them is that the loud ones are straight up kooks. Lower intermediate surfers, kooky style, can barely get up and get down the line looking like a beginner. The better of them are busy surfing. The kooky ones are compensating for their dumb abilities. All those years surfing an okay burger by themselves and they still suck. You could cut and paste this and probably apply the story to most breaks around the world. The difference with them is that they suck at surfing, which maybe explains why they are so especially stupidly aggressive. They are even kooks at being angry locals. The loudest monkeys always seem to have the smallest balls, right? That being said, if you are new to a spot, stay out of the way and on the inside and take the scraps. If you paddle out into the lineup, you probably deserve what you get. KUW, Rom.
Great. I like that we are shortened now to KUW. Uh, the exactly, I don't think it is discussed enough. If you're going to be a proper angry local, you better rip a little bit. I mean, it's embarrassing. If you're out yelling, which I will say, in all honesty, I've toned down my harsh lineup rhetoric just because I know, man, if I yell at somebody and then fully bog rail right in front of them, like not only do I feel shame inside, the entire lineup feels my shame and knows that I was rightly shamed.
You undermine the entire effort of being a local and an enforcer if you do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So my experience with, there's a version of Huntington Beach locals. I guess it's pretty diluted at this point, but certainly growing up at the pier was more um, competitive and aggressive. The locals were burnout tattooed dudes who had nothing to lose. And
Yep.
so it was kind of like, and I think that's probably true in Lunada as well. Like, if you actually have something to lose, you really can't go rogue.
Yeah.
And I think they've learned that now by being, that now that there's lawsuits and stuff. But in Huntington, it was just like literally, I've seen that dude sleeping on the bench midday, and he's got face tattoos. I'm pretty sure he doesn't mind doing jail time. Like, and his board's a beater. Like
But
he has,
those guys would rip the Huntington angry local back in the day. I mean, I don't know if rip, but they would rip Huntington. Like they surfed that wave. They surfed the pier so well. They would like, I remember just standing on the pier as a kid and watching like a nice faded bottom turn, just like to a good top turn. I feel today's grumpy locals that I see around, uh, I'm trying to think of the ones around here. There's like one or two. And their aggressive bark is matched by their like kind of yappy surfing, right? It's really hyperactive. They're like, "Whack, whack," like trying to get a bunch of hits in, and it's ugly and it's weird. But you can't really call it kooky. It's just really bad style.
yeah, yeah,
Like they
totally.
surf with bad style.
Totally. Yeah. All right. Well, moving on. We gave Ben Gravy a bad rap comparing him
Accidentally.
to
Didn't mean
comparing him
to.
to the Ray Gun.
Didn't mean to. Raygun's a international hero, a household name. That's all I wanted Ben Gravy to be.
In the way that
But
Ray Gun broke dancing,
oops.
we claimed that Ben Gravy broke surfing.
I guess not the same then.
No, I think our argument stands, but we did get pushback from Mike at Weekend Vans. Mike wrote in and said, DLS and Chaz, I'm writing in response to Chaz's statement that Ben Gravy is to surfing as Ray Gun is to breakdancing. The implication here is that Ben's version of surfing is so disconnected from, quote, true surfing that it degrades the act of surfing itself. I would propose, however, that Ben is another in a long line of artists whose work went underappreciated by the gatekeepers of their field. Can Ben do a turn like John John? No. Can he do an air like 𝗿𝗏𝘀? No. Can he paint the face of a wave with style and grace like Devin Howard spraying the face of DJ Lunakai at Malibu? Again, no.
I love
But
that real quick pause that Mike from Weekend Vans remembered. Like that's a major component. I totally forgot it was DJ Luna Kai. Yeah, thank you, Mike.
so side note, we'll come back to the email, but
Yeah.
total side note. Lunakai, I apparently followed him on Instagram back in the spray in the face because we had back and forth with him.
Yeah,
We
totally.
identify somebody amongst our community identified him
I
from
interviewed him.
That's right. So he
Yeah.
got outed. Like first he got sprayed, then the
Yeah.
internet identified him, and then you reached out and interviewed him, right? So I was following him on Instagram, but not noticed he had disappeared for a couple of years.
Oh,
He
yeah.
came, he popped up 2 months ago and is super pro Trump and is like
Oh,
the first few posts, all of his posts are selfie mode, and he's doing like 3 a day videos. And it's him driving his car like while he's talking, and he's like, I know a lot of you are surprised because I used to be really leftist, but this country has gone to shit. And now I'm
Ooh.
all behind Trump. Let me tell you why Trump is so great, and just goes on these rants. And he has like 30 followers and he'll get like 2 likes, but he's posting 3 videos a day, just going nuts.
Man, is he changing your mind? Is he making you think, you know what? You got me, DJ 𝗠𝗵𝘀𝗀. I'm thinking about voting Republican this election. I'm going for Trump.
He has not changed my mind in any way at all. Not that, I was one way or the other before, but he just has gone off the deep end. He's not, what he hasn't changed my mind about is I thought he was kooky back then. He's still kooky.
Man, I'll tell you what, I mean, no matter what you're rambling about, if you're rambling on and on and on to 30 followers 3 times a day and get it, like, there's something about, I feel, and everyone, this is no secret, but just social media and mental health and all of it.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
really see when people break, I feel, or and maybe not in, like, oh man, lock him up or he needs real help or whatever. But just when you go mental, like social media crazy, is when you are ranting to 30 followers. That's when it's like, okay, nobody's listening, nobody cares. This is not being seen by anyone, and yet somehow you have the time and energy to bang 3 of these a day, to
Yeah.
like, especially they're always going 2 camera too.
Yeah.
It's the sign of 2 camera, 30 followers.
Totally. Well, in case you're wondering, it looks like his DJ career hasn't really panned out.
Ooh, I mean, but it might have a second life. And like, I read a story, who was it by? Somebody who went to a bunch of MAGA events and just described the party-like atmosphere. I think the person would bail as soon as the whatever rally started. But I guess the grounds outside of a MAGA event are like, it's like full festival. So maybe DJ 𝗠𝗵𝘀𝗀 could find a second life as a MAGA DJ.
Festival in terms of like a tailgating party outside?
Yeah, yes. I think there's like a
Really?
ton of Trump or MAGA Trump merch tents, like games to play, whatever, like music. It's like a full-on thing. Yeah, people tailgate that stuff.
I got an email from whoever, news outlet, New York Times maybe or something last week. And the headline was Trump says his rallies are bigger than Kamala's. We attended 6 of each. Here's what the numbers actually show. And I was like, I cannot believe that we're a month away from an election and the lead headline is whose rally is
Or
bigger.
bigger. It's
Like,
crazy town.
it's whether is right or wrong doesn't even matter. The fact that you're measuring dick size and that's going to, you think you're going to publish a news story and that's going to influence voters is whose rallies are bigger. Okay, then I'm going to vote for that person or I'm against that person strictly because their rally was bigger is an insanely sad place in politics.
Well, Costco is building apartments inside Costco. Idiocracy is officially here. So we've arrived.
Totally. Totally. Anyways, back to the email.
Sorry, Mike.
Um, but he has again about Ben Gravy, but he has managed to make a living by sharing his love of surfing to his over 200,000 YouTube subscribers, showing them surfing that is more relatable to the proletariat surfer than Nathan Florence's surfing a Tasmanian death slab. Your reception of Mr. Gravy's work reminds me of the literary establishment's review of Jack Kerouac's early work. One review of On the Road said, quote, the writing is impressionistic and at times sloppy, lacking the formal polish of more traditional novels, end quote. Do you remember the name of the critic who wrote that? Of course not. No one does. But On the Road went on to inspire generations of van lifers to turn down leadership roles at their father's hedge funds in favor of peeing in the Swami's parking lot. I argue that Ben Gravy is not the surfing hero that we wanted, but precisely in bold, the hero we need in an age of formulaic Olympic wave pool gymnastics. Keep work, Mike from Encinitas.
Mike, I very much appreciate the email. I very much disagree. I still think Kerouac sucks as a writer. Do you ever like On the Road? I
I
thought On the Road,
loved On the Road.
really? I thought On the
Loved.
Road was like, that is the book that Ashton Goggins would write today. Like, navel gazing, try hard, look at me, do this thing, right? And yeah, in any case, Kerouac fans, call on in. Tell me I'm wrong. I've always hated Kerouac. But back to Ben Gravy. The problem with him is, as Mike points out, it's this dumbing down of the thing, though, right? Raygun was a bad version of dancing. Ben is a bad version of surfing. Now, I fully get that peak breakdancing was not seen at the Olympics. It is seen on the streets or somewhere else, right? Peak surfing is also not seen in competition. It is seen, whether it is, kind of pick your poison of an artist, but give me a 𝗍𝗵𝘃𝗀, give me a Dane Reynolds, give me a, whoever, like pick your one, but that's an artist. Ben Gravy is dumbing down art to a point where, and of course, Kerouac's On the Road went on to be praised and widely emulated and all that. And I think of course, we could argue that is in the American canon now. It was this first kind of methamphetamine fueled, I'm going to put my thing in and just type, 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 type. Like he was a groundbreaking author in that way. And I suppose the same way Ben Gravy is a groundbreaking surfer in terms of making it widely accessible, Stokey, lowest common denominator stuff at a bigger scale than has yet been done, right? But I still think Ben Gravy he's not art. This is not what we aspire to. It's not like this is some new form of this thing. It is just a bad version that's easily digestible for the masses. And nothing against Ben. That's where Ben makes his bread and butter. It's that dumb pineapple head with sunglasses. It is like a bad aesthetic. The whole thing is bad, and it's like meant for people without taste. And I'm sorry, love you, Ben. I don't know that I do.
Well, that's kind of how I felt about it too. Like the idea of underappreciated by the gatekeepers of their field. Mike, I think that's accurate. Like,
but because it sucks though.
But well, no, I think I was opposed to the flamboyance. Like I wasn't against Ben as a surfer or even the style of surfing he was doing. It was the flamboyance that really made me push it back. My era, and I think most of surfing prior, valued discretion and simply letting one surfing do the talking. And so I discounted Ben for his exuberant stoke. That's kind of all that it came down to. And I think that Ben, by the way, was right to ignore the haters, and he's clearly built a bigger following than I have, which, by the way, was his intention and not necessarily mine. And I think that's the other thing that was bothersome to me, and that's different with the Kerouac metaphor, is that Ben is doing it strictly to gain followers.
Yeah. I mean, this is Ben's job. Ben's job is to be as broadly appealing to the widest number of people as he possibly can be. This is his bread and butter. It's his living, and great, right? Like, again, this is not a rant against Ben or what Ben does or what Ben is. I just disagree about the gatekeeping bit and just think there is some important, and I'm not, again, I think differentiating and making high performance surfing at the World Surf League level the pinnacle. I don't think that's the pinnacle of surfing, right? I don't think that's peak surfing. I think it even retards people surfing. I think that probably each one of those surfers would be better off tour, right? Now,
Yeah, I totally agree.
I love that the tour exists so we can actually have this game. It gives us something to, do during the year. So nothing against the tour either. I just think that it's important for us, and to Ben's full credit, Ben never puts himself up as the greatest surfer to ever lived, right? Ben is never touting his own surfing. He's only touting the accessibility and I can do it, you can do it kind of thing. And great, I love that there is a Sesame Street in surfing. But that is also not the Louvre, right? This is not where our greatest work is being either showcased or held or whatever.
Well, precisely to your point about pinnacle of surfing isn't WSL's what they're churning out. I think that's where Mike from Encinitas is correct as well, where he says Ben is the hero we need in the age of the formulaic Olympic wave pool gymnastics. Correct. However, I appreciate like Ben's sharing of the stoke, but that positivity kind of element of it, but the kookiness of the bright wetsuits, the soft tops, the aggressive shakas will age poorly. And I think that even Mike from Encinitas will look back in 20 years and be like, influencing our youth, I think I would have rather have an Archie or a Dane Reynolds or somebody who kind of held those old school values of discretion and letting the surfing do the talking. Because if Ben is the one who's influencing the youth, moving forward, surfing is going to look really, really shameful.
I mean, exactly. 20 years, good call. Mike, we'll see you in 20 years. We'll meet up in the weekend van.
The other thing is the critic quote that he pulled is accurate about Jack Kerouac's writing. The quote about Jack Kerouac's writing was not incorrect. The quote was, "The writing is impressionistic and at times sloppy, lacking the formal polish of more traditional novels." That wasn't even an insult. That was just
No.
calling it what it was. And so again, I think the role of the critic isn't necessarily to become famous or to build a following. It's to provide context for the reader or our listener of where this particular work, where Ben Gravy's work fits into the context of the culture, and maybe where it even has particular value, where it's innovative, where it's provocative. That's the role of the critic. So it sounds to me like the critic was precisely nailed it on what On the Road's kind of deviation was, or maybe why it was notable, you know?
And didn't want to be famous. I think exactly to your
Exactly.
point,
Yeah.
and you're precisely right. The I've heard it time and time again. They don't build statues to critics, right? It's because critics aren't looking for a statue. That's not why they do what they do.
Yeah.
Not everyone is looking for mass saturation and fame and to write the most critically acclaimed book of criticism ever. No, a critic has a super important part in culture, in society, calling things what they are, not letting everything just stand, showcasing this is where, I mean, you've said it all already. This is where this piece belongs in history. This is where it belongs in relations to it, in relation to its time. This is what came before. This is what is, all of broad context of what this thing is. And it's not about fame. It's about accurately describing things, which is, man, I read all kinds of criticism, and maybe that doesn't come as a shock, but love criticism of old stuff too. And of course, some of it doesn't stand, just like, whatever. But it's really important. I think criticism is important and gatekeeping is important.
Totally. And just like letting the surfing do the talking, if the critic is good and thorough at their job and prolific enough in the amount that they output, other people make them famous. You know,
Yeah.
Pauline Kael, as a film critic, ends up having books written about her or a compilation of her articles or something, and now her name is known, but it wasn't her aiming for that goal.
No, she had her job. A good critic does good criticism.
Exactly. Our newest segment, linguistic segment, now named "Don't Say Gay" after the call that spawned its name. We dealt with "for sure" last week.
Yep.
Saying "for sure." We now have a new linguistic pet peeve from a listener for us to analyze.
Excited to get into it.
I know. I'm liking that this became a segment.
Right in line with my master's degree.
Exactly. That's why I think people relied on us. Okay, here we go.
David and Chaz, this is your old friend here, Devin. It's been a while. Hope you guys are well. Listening to the grit on a long drive, and just heard something. I think it was Doug for Rhode Island. Don't say gay. I didn't even know that was a segment. If it is, I think I have something for you. Maybe this is barrel or not. To be honest, a lot of people use that right before they're going to tell you something. And I have to say, every time they say that, I think, why aren't you always honest? Or they'll say something and then they'll say, to be honest, at the end of it. So what do you guys think about that one? I'm not a fan. I think you should always be honest, and I think you guys get a lot of advice that would help you always be honest. Could we make this a thing to stop saying to be honest? Second one, I work with an Australian. He pointed out to me one time that Americans say something all the time that he just caught on to, and it's look at those waves, look at those guys. And I said, we don't say that. Within minutes, I said, look at. Don't say look at it or look at. Say look at. What do you guys think? Work.
Any opinions on "to be honest"?
Love them both, or love both brought up as examples. To be honest, I kind of like it, to be honest, because I feel in our speech, I don't know that honesty is always what we are going for, right? Our speech is complex, and you're there at a restaurant or you're there with somebody, then you don't like them or you don't like lots of what they're doing, you don't like what they're wearing, if we're all like practicing the, what's it called when people used to do that? I think they still do, maybe something honesty, like radical honesty, maybe is what it was, when you're just
It was,
honest
yeah.
about everything, right? That's not the way society is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, I feel, there's a bunch of nuance. There's a bunch of things you say out of politeness. There's things you don't say out of politeness. And so I think then the to be honest is a nice qualifier. If you're going to say something, just letting everybody know, this is not, I'm not saying this thing for a politically correct reaction or something like that, or a nice reaction. I'm going to say what I honestly feel about this thing right in this moment. So take this one as my honest opinion. Again, you'd think that it would be great to live in a world of 100% honesty, but no, we would all just be out there like in messy puddles by the end of the day, having so much honesty spewed all over us. Honesty is essential. It is important. In a marriage or a relationship, it is essential, it is important. But if you were honest every moment in your marriage or relationship, that thing is going down in flames. How do I look, honey? Pretty bad. You're like worse than usual, which isn't saying a whole lot. I mean, come on now.
Beyond that, beyond telling your wife that dress is ill-fitting, just you go through emotions in the day where you feel riled up about something and you would spew it on your wife, some sort of vitriol, or like react strongly to something that she did. 20 minutes later, you don't feel as strongly.
No.
So I actually contain, I'd say 80% of my thoughts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
80% of my thoughts and feelings, because they're not representative of my true north or like my core self.
Precisely. Even if you're out in the world, right? Not even related to the ones closest to you. If you're out at a store and you see somebody doing something, and if you're going to say something honest in that moment, but then you observe a little more, and there's always or almost always context. Oh, I see this person did this because of this reason, right? And so my honest reaction to seeing something was a bad one. It was a improper honesty.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think you nailed it. I did not consider all of those things when I first listened to this call, and I thought that the listener had a good point. And I thought that people saying to be honest maybe was almost like a subliminal reveal that they weren't being honest about previous things. But I don't think it's as much that as it is what you said.
I'm going to say something truthful right now.
We're all aware that we're living with a certain amount of dishonesty in our speech and in our way of communicating things, but that's actually beneficial for the progress and for just an enjoyable day.
We're going along, getting along.
And so when you use the phrase to be honest, it is a reveal, but it's intentional. It's not subliminal. It's specifically saying, I'm cutting out all the pretense of our usual conversation, and I'm going to deliver in an accurate, unblemished, objective assessment of what I feel.
Because I feel 9 times out of 10 also, when somebody says to be honest, what follows has the potential to be provocative, either pro or con something, right? To be honest, I really didn't like this movie that everyone says they like, or to be honest, something. I rarely hear people say to be honest and then deliver something that's not honest, right?
Totally.
That's not at least honest to them. That's not their honest opinion. Rarely, to be honest, I really loved your, whatever, spaghetti, even if you hated it. I think that doesn't happen. I feel to be honest, like oddly holds a nice spot in our communication.
Agreed. Yeah, nailed it. Precisely. We talked about a couple years ago. Well, we talked about years ago that show Love on the Spectrum.
I just finished the new season 2 nights ago.
Yep. Oh, really? That's funny that I would bring it up.
That is a special show.
Well, it's talking about the radical honesty. That's what I love about those people with autism, is that they really express what's on their mind in real time in a way that is not offensive seemingly ever, even if it's a negative, even if it's not what the other person wants to hear, the person that they're dating. By the way, anybody who hasn't seen Love on the Spectrum, it's a dating show for people with autism.
Totally worth a watch.
It's amazing. Like, it sounds almost like you would be making fun of, but it's not at all. It is the most sweet, heartwarming show ever. But to see somebody on a date and just straight out say, what they're feeling about the other person, like, hey, this isn't working out for me, or yeah, I really don't like that color of lipstick on you, or whatever it is. And the person generally receives it in the way that it was intended.
Just okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. You don't like that color of lipstick? That's okay. I really like this color of lipstick.
Yeah.
That's the interaction. And so almost all of this trappings that we put on top of our speech that you already explained, they've not really been bothered by any of that. And I don't want to say they're experiencing less emotion, because I don't think that's true at all, but they're just experiencing a more objective assessment of their own emotions and the way that other people are delivering the emotions or intending to deliver them.
Completely. I mean, and I feel that we can learn a lot from them. I mean, I don't feel like radical honesty is necessarily workable or the way to go, but I do feel like we should be more honest in our lives with each other, right? I mean, if you have an opinion that's, really the way you feel about something, you should feel free to share it, unless you're going to just torch the earth.
Yeah, totally agree. Great show. Go watch it.
Yep. It's funny. I thought that was making fun too, and like halfway through, I was like, "How are they doing this?" But you hear whoever the director, creator off camera every once in a while. They must have like all kinds of expertise and degrees and whatnot in spectrum personality stuff. But then also you realize how much it humanizes people on the spectrum. Like instead of just if you're out in the world and you see somebody who's clearly autistic, maybe you just have a quick you know cardboard cutout version of them in your mind, whereas the show really humanizes people, all different kinds of people, which is welcome.
Totally. Yeah, I love the show. The show
Uh,
has brightened my life. The older dude in San
yeah,
Francisco,
yeah, he's
how
epic.
great is he?
Except the babe he went out on a date with, who like the zesty Israeli. I don't know how she wasn't a reoccurring character unless she was like a hired actress, because she was crazy town, over the top good.
But she doesn't have autism.
Did she not?
I don't think so.
I mean, yeah, maybe not. They just were setting her up with
I
autistic.
think I think it was just somebody who wanted to date him, or I don't even know how they find these people or vet these
Yeah,
people, but it didn't seem to me like she had autism. I don't think that was part of the storyline, but she was going all in, dude. She wanted
she was
it immediately,
she
and
was a
he was
hundred
like,
percent there. Yeah, she was there for it.
it was incredible.
Yeah,
What's that? Do you remember his name? Is it Steven?
Steve. Yeah,
Yeah, Steve.
yeah.
So good. All right. By the way, couple of things while we're on the subject of television, little detour here. Have you seen Wise Guy, the documentary about David Chase, who made The Sopranos?
No,
Literally the best documentary style show or that I've seen. I think it's like a two-part series
on HBO.
on HBO.
Okay.
It's about David Chase. I always saw his name in the
Yes.
credits of The Sopranos,
Sopranos, of
but I've
course.
never seen a picture of him. I've never seen him do any other work. It's not like he made movies or TV after The Sopranos. So I only associated him with The Sopranos. The documentary is made by Alex Gibney, who's like a phenomenal documentarian in recent years. So I love Alex Gibney, and they did it all. It's like it's cutting back and forth to it's basically illustrates that The Sopranos was autobiographical about David Chase and his upbringing and his relationship with his mom.
Amazing. That's
So
great.
so it's kind of cutting back and forth between David Chase and his mom and Tony Soprano and his mom, and how that informed all of the storyline and all of Tony's behaviors and the way that David wrote all of that stuff and what was going on in David's life. It's really, really, really well done.
I love back to our gatekeeping and Ben Gravy and all of this conversation of people like David Chase, what appears, who have this such a rich vein to mine for material. But once that's mined, that's finished, and they know maybe that it's finished, right? This is their one story to tell. And it's not like, okay, well, now I'm going back in and going to tell my great Western story. And now I'm going
Yeah.
to go back in. Like, I had one rich, deep vein, but that makes that story, I think, so much better. That makes a Soprano story timeless and like phenomenally well done.
Yeah, it made me think about, we were talking recently about, do you want to spread yourself thin I think we were talking about surfing versus Ethan Ewing's. Do you want to spread yourself thin and surf 100 waves and do 1,000,000 turns? Or do you want to get the set waves and do 3 epic carves, you know? And that made me think about David Chase because he was committed to this one thing. And it was this huge art project, and nobody saw the vision, and everybody shut it down. Like it got denied by every network everywhere. HBO at the time was fledgling. Like it was embarrassing to go get a show made on HBO. So they kind of as a last ditch effort took on this concept and let him have full creative control. And that was part of his negotiations was, look, I'm just not going to bend. Like I need to do this. And so because they were the low network on the totem pole, they took the risk, and immediately as soon as the show published, it was a hit.
Yeah,
it was like it
out of the
resonated.
gate.
Yeah, I don't think they would have signed on for multiple, episodes even before season 2, but because it was a hit out of the gate, it was only a hit out of the gate because he stuck to his guns.
Yep.
And it only would have happened in that moment on HBO. And so it's a really, really interesting story. And it stood the test of time. Like it's constantly being claimed as one of the greatest shows on television, and it really still is.
It so is. Well, thanks for the rec. I'm heading in.
And I don't know if you remember how controversial that final episode was.
Of course. People still write about it.
And they talk about that.
Great.
They go in real depth about that too. So okay. I really loved it.
Thanks for the rec.
You're welcome. So a couple of things in surf media.
Oh, let's get to Look At real quick though. I'm just going to address Look At real quick, which I think on the West Coast in particular, this is, we speak, America's West Coast is network broadcast standard, where you think there's no variation, and there's very little variation. Things like Look At though are, I'm all for them. I'm all for the little quirks, linguistic quirks that infect locales. Even if we're speaking network broadcast standard, Look At, we still got little flair of our own.
Yeah. And of course, the distinction that he's talking about is the original phrase is look at, A-T.
Which is way too much mouth to move in between the K and the A.
A little bit.
After that. Yeah. You got to go wide in your mouth.
Well, the funny thing is you would have to add that. If you say look at, you would never just stop look at.
Yeah.
You would say look at that. Or look at. There's no look at, by itself. It's really interesting the way that developed.
It's a good one.
High surf. I'm seeing billboards every day when I drive on the freeway. Commercials on the internet. I think they're running on maybe the WSL last event, finals day or something like that. I've seen it everywhere. I haven't watched a single episode, but I've gotten a number of emails from people saying that I actually should watch. Have you watched any of Rescue High Surf?
I did not watch. Are your emails that you're coming in? See, that's the thing. I try to think of the last time, and this is just snooty and snotty, and the same reason that I bash on Ben Gravy just rudely from my tower up here in Culture Land. I can't remember the last time I watched something on network TV. And if it's on network TV, it means I don't want to watch it, which is straight up rude. There's probably good things on network TV, and I'm just like, that played on NBC. If it's not like it played on Fox, no way. It's got to be on whatever. What's the fancy Fox? The
FX.
FX, yeah. It's got to be on FX, man. Then I'll watch it. If it's on Fox, no way.
I mean, that's exactly how I felt about it as well. Even there's a couple of recommendations that came through, like, hey, it's pretty decent. Now I just criticize the person that sent it to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me want to watch it anymore.
Hope you like the voice too.
Exactly. I mean, the problem is if you're on those major networks, public television basically is what it is, or just, available for free TV. It's formulaic. There's a certain formula that is applied, and I've seen every iteration of that formula by the time I was 18 years old. And so there's no need. I'm just not intellectually stimulated nor entertained by that formula any longer.
Are the emails you're getting positive though? Because I will say I was hoping, even though I was not about to lend it my eyeballs, I was hoping for good things. I feel like we've had enough bad surf stuff to make fun of. And it feels like this one, tangentially, the story of lifeguards, it's not anytime surf is front and center, it's going to be a bad story. And so moving surf to a thing that's happening, like it was in Baywatch, I suppose, I thought if they could actually capture the Hawaiian lifeguard drama, maybe it'd be okay. What are the emails saying?
I haven't had like a glowing review. A
Okay.
couple of people are like, you know, if you got nothing else going on, it's decent. Um, the thing is, the telling the story of the lifeguards is a great concept that would be far better on FX.
Yeah.
Like the
Yes.
concept is great. It would just be a way better show if it was right after the bear,
Yeah.
you know. Um, along those lines though of mainstream, I was in Florida last week when we recorded this, and I was talking to somebody at a little get together who doesn't surf, and he was asking, I was telling him about what I do for work and the podcast and stuff. And he's like, well, who's the most famous person you've interviewed? I was like, it'll be interesting to hear who you can even identify among the names of people that I've interviewed. You know, like
Yeah.
I'll tell you the most famous person I've interviewed. You've never heard of them. They're not famous enough for you to have heard of them. But I played a game with them where I'm like, let's find out which surfers whose names you've actually heard of. And I go, Kelly Slater. He goes, she's won a lot of contests, hasn't she?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. That's the truth, though.
And yeah, so I go, well, interestingly, it's a male, but yeah, you're right. But the most famous surfer that he was aware of was Laird Hamilton.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and it's funny that this is now 2 decades on that both Laird and Kelly are if a person outside of our tiny bubble can name a surfer, it's either Laird or Kelly, that they've maintained, which I suppose is not, I mean, like surfing kind of bubbled up into public, like the public domain at Laird and Kelly's height. And then now it's receded again. And so I guess it makes sense that those two would be the ones. And, for whatever reason, did that thing to maximum visual, whatever. Like
Yeah.
they got a lot of stuff out of it.
Well,
Uh,
so I asked him further because I really wanted to analyze how Laird landed as first in his mind. And I offered Bethany Hamilton up to him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, Bethany Hamilton." He goes, "I remember." But to him, Bethany Hamilton was a moment in time. It's not like
yeah.
Bethany's out there still shredding in
No,
his
Bethany
mind.
got her shark arm bit off by a shark, and that happened 20 years ago.
And they made a movie about it, and so he
Yeah.
remembered the movie, you know. But with Laird, and then I was like, well, Laird married Gabby Reese, and so maybe that helped buoy his profile. And then I said, yeah, but Kelly Slater dated Pamela Anderson and Giselle Bundchen, who are infinitely more famous than Gabby Reese. So you would think that would have bumped his profile. And he was on Baywatch. And so I would have thought that Kelly would have made it into that guy's awareness more than more than Laird. But ultimately, what it came down to was he's a hunter, this guy, and he follows Meat Eater and these certain cultural things where Laird has overlapped into because Laird runs these training programs, and famous Joe Rogan kind of universe people, fitness people, hunting people, they go and they train with Laird. And so I think that's where the overlap was for him specifically.
I think Laird was very consistent Laird was never a pro surfer first and foremost. Laird was Laird Hamilton first and foremost. Laird was like already a personality and did a real good job, I think, of not cloyingly building his legend. He just went and did his thing and had the combination of good looks and good fortune and great houses in Maui and Malibu and good neighbors and famous friends and all of the stew. But Laird just plodded along and made his Laird as like the person that famous people want to be. I think Kelly was too kind of all over the place and then also following tour forever, right? It didn't allow Laird was just either there with his rich neighbors, famous neighbors in Malibu or Maui, building camps for them, all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Where Kelly was chasing tour, chasing titles. And so Kelly's big in the surfer mind, but not very big, I think, in the non-surfer mind.
I mean, it's really interesting. It's kind of an indictment again against the competitive format of just you can hyper focus on that. You will still never achieve mass broad acceptance if you're just focused on that one thing. It
Oh,
only matters to a certain group of people, you know?
if you're the best surfer who ever lived, most decorated, and also regularly ish, on Rogan and on Sports Center and on like other bigger media places and, famous people Instagram, hanging out with Barack Obama, and people still think you're the girl who won a lot of surfing titles, then it is a harsh reality about how big our surfing is and how much it matters.
Exactly. Speaking of which, Abu Dhabi longboard, whatever classic event is running currently. It started yesterday, or maybe 12 hours ago. Have you watched a single wave?
I haven't. Have you?
No.
Funny enough, I mean, I don't watch professional longboarding. I don't typically like watching wave pool events, but I wonder if the two negatives equal a positive in this case. If you could actually think, oh, wave looks good on them.
So Scott Bass made an argument to me earlier this week, which I think was valid. He wasn't promoting longboarding or competitive longboarding or even the wave pool. He was simply stating that this might be the perfect venue for a longboarding contest.
Because it's a long right or left, right? This is a
It's
lot longer than which is already too long. It could be argued for watching competitive surfing, Kelly's Lemoore facility.
So his argument was specifically that it's the perfect fit, even more perfect than shortboarding in a wave pool. Like the shortboarding in a wave pool, that wave doesn't provide enough dynamic sections to really make it that interesting. Longboarding, you don't want the dynamic sections. You want the slow sections. And longboarding should never be competitive in the first place. Let's throw that aside. But if you're going to make it competitive, you want a soft, long wave. And this is a soft, long wave. And you can now objectively measure how long they're trying to do three things, basically. They're trying to get barreled and they're trying to get time on the tip, nose riding, and then maybe do turns occasionally. So you can measure objectively how many seconds, nanoseconds, they're hanging 10. You can measure by the nanosecond how long they're in the barrel. And there isn't nearly as much variety in styles of longboarding currently than there is in Ito's approach versus Ethan Ewing's approach, where it becomes kind of measuring apples versus oranges. So longboarding in a pool, specifically this pool in Abu Dhabi, may be the perfect fit for competitive longboarding.
I'm going to do the work for Scott Bass and check some out. What time is it run? It's got to be.
No, he wasn't saying it's entertaining or you should watch it.
But I'm curious though, if it is some kind of, if it looks understandable, if it looks like you can watch it and say, that's boring and I'd never want to watch that again. But I get it. This is where professional surfing, kind of competitive surfing, makes sense here.
It's where it makes sense, but it still isn't entertaining or going to engage an audience.
I truly love that the World Surf League, in all its vast wisdom, decides to call the first event at this brand new pool in a country that has never hosted a surf competition before a classic. I mean, it's like, it's so reflective of the lack of thought that goes into anything that happens there, right? Something sounds good and it gets put on a thing. Like, it's not like, well, you know what? Now that we think about it, this is the first time this pool has been used in a country that has never had surfing before. Calling it a classic, probably, we've never even done this contest before. Like, it's just absurd.
That is peak absurdity.
Yep, the classic.
So funny. So funny. Okay. Chaz Smith, I have a question for you. Do you still hate surfing?
Sure do. I sure do. Guess what's coming today? And it'll be revealed sooner than later.
A new vlog.
I hate surfing ashtrays and I think mugs. Ceramics, custom made by an artisan. You'll see them soon.
Is this a merch drop or is this a new video on YouTube?
It's a merch drop.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, ashtrays.
Okay. Because I was expecting, I'm just wanting the update on the vlog, the YouTube. Are you still doing I Hate Surfing?
I need to do more, and funny that we talk about 𝗿𝗪𝙢. The next one, I'm getting 𝗿𝗪𝙢 aboard an I Hate Surfing episode. So just trying to carve the time, but I should drop little ones before then. But yeah,
Is it an interview with 𝗿𝗪𝙢?
Yeah, me and 𝗿𝗪𝙢 sitting down, chatting about hating surfing.
In person?
Yeah, in person. Gonna go up to Malibu.
Amazing.
Yeah, me and 𝗿𝗪𝙢. 𝗿𝗪𝙢, Lord bless Laird Hamilton. Laird, unlike Kelly too, maybe why he is in your non-surfing friend's mind and not Kelly Slater, Laird's got a sense of humor on him.
Yeah.
Laird's
Well,
Laird will
My
go
non
back and forth with Derek in the DMs, laughing about things we say.
my non-surfing friend asked me that. He goes, "Have you ever interviewed Laird?" And I'm like, "No." Um, I mean, I would like to. I just never reached out for whatever reason, but we talk crap sometimes, and like we'll even publish it on Instagram. So we tag him in it, and then he'll reply in the DMs, and he's always got a sense of humor about it.
He's funny. He is a funny dude who I think understands that he is living the gilded life, and so why be bitter?
Yeah, completely. I just want to make a note too. Chaz is going to be at the Boardroom Show interviewing people. So not just surf stars and luminaries, but you potentially.
I want to interview as many listeners as I do surf stars and luminaries.
Exactly. I really think I agree with you. When I did a kind of man on the street style of interviews during the first 𝗏𝗏 event and just walked around with a roving mic and interviewed Julian Wilson and Rosie Hodge and Joe Schmo, who was at the pool, getting their take on it and stitched it together into an episode. And so I feel like that's kind of similar to what you're going to just generate the interviews and then I'll stitch it together after the fact, but that'll be kind of what the style is for the show.
Yeah. And so if you are around in near North County, San Diego, October is it 13th?
12th and 13th.
And I'll be there the 12th. That's the Saturday, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be there the 12th, whole day there the 12th. Come on by the Weekend Vans booth. I will be doing it inside the Weekend Vans. If we're lucky enough, we'll have some Merrick Lager in there. If we're unlucky, we'll have some other lager in there. But don't worry, there'll be beverages, there'll be chats. Come and do it.
We'll have Merrick Lagers in there for sure until they run out.
Yeah, so come early, come often.
So come early. 10 a.m. is when it opens. Are you there at 10 or are you going to get there at noon?
I'll be there by just after 10.
Okay,
I'll be there.
perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the full day.
So the Weekend Vans booth, obviously Weekend Vans is the kitted out Sprinter van. So we've got this thing built out into a podcast studio. So you jump in the van, inadvisable in your youth, but jump into the van with a creepy tattooed guy, Chaz, and he's going to conduct the interviews in the Weekend Van with a refrigerator on board. The whole thing runs on a battery. It's silent. It's solar powered. It's incredible. So weekendvans.com or at weekendvans if you want to check that out if you're not nearby.
What is the ticket to the Boardroom Show, or how do people get their ticket?
$20, I think.
At the door, or do you go online?
You can go online and get it. I think you get a discount if you buy it on boardroomshow.com, or you can just buy it at the door. I think I don't know which is 20. If it's the advance ticket's 20 or at the door is 20, but somewhere right around there. And then, or you could buy a weekend ticket for like $30 for both days, something like that. So looking forward to seeing everybody there. And we've got a Pros in the Wild submission for you.
Exciting.
All right. Hello, David and Chaz. I've got a potential Pros in the Wild for you. I will let you decide. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and a few of our local spots get pretty sporty in the winter. A few years back, I checked the buoys and the swell was reading 18 feet at 24 seconds. I threw my biggest gun in the car and went to the beach without the slightest hope of even getting in the water. When I arrived, I joined the standard crew of salty regulars standing on the dune next to a memorial for a local surf legend who had died at the spot. I quickly realized that many of our homegrown chargers were here, but no one was in the water and no one was even suiting up. This is unusual because we have some hellmen who I've never seen hesitate to paddle out. It's only water, right? Ha. I climbed to the crest, sipped my coffee, and turned my eyes to the sea. What I saw was shocking, all caps. Absolute mountains of water. The beach was closed out as far as the eye could see. From our vantage point, we could see what looked like perfect A-frames breaking very far out at a deep water spot that is notoriously very sharky with lots of current. It's not an easy spot to surf, and all of us have learned the hard way that you're pretty much never too far out. We watched in awe as wave after massive wave rolled through the outer lineup and detonated. You could feel the sand shaking under your feet. So heavy. A short while later, a tricked out Sprinter van tailed its way up the dirt track towards where we park our vehicles. Eyebrows raised since nobody recognized the van, and it is very rare for visitors to venture out in winter without being escorted by someone in the know. The side door slid open and a guy jumped out. He was wearing a full inflatable impact suit and a beautiful brand new gun. Without so much as a nod to the guys on the dunes, he waxed his board and headed to the beach. What was even stranger than this brazen assault on our hallowed domain was that he was followed by a photographer with a massive lens and a tripod. The photographer set up on the beach, and we all watched the lone guy paddle out. He made it out to the channel without drama and proceeded to paddle towards the monstrous A-frames which had so captivated us. He got out during a lull and sat on his board. He's inside, was mumbled by several observers. Too deep, was agreed. Sure enough, a dinosaur set reared its head on the horizon. We watched smugly as he paddled hard for the outside, but took the inevitable first wave on the head and a subsequent pounding, eventually washing him all the way to the beach. To his credit, he walked back up the beach, paddled back out. This time he sat well outside of his original chosen location. He's still inside. Maybe? No way. Definitely not far enough out. We all agreed. Another set darkened the horizon. Again, he scrambled for the outside. He made it over the first wave, the second, even the third, each wave bigger than the last. But as he climbed the wall of the fourth massive set, the ocean pitched him, tumbling backwards in the lip as he attempted to paddle over. He disappeared in an absolute explosion of white water. We all watched nervously as his board tombstoned in the whitewash. Eventually, a dark shape popped up on the surface. He again was washed into the beach. This time, his vest fully inflated, and the fight clearly beaten out of him. He collected his cameraman, walked to his van, and they drove off. Neither of them spoke a word. He didn't even change out of his gear. We all shook our heads and commented on the audacity of the guy for not even bothering to talk to any of us on the dunes prior to paddling out on a huge day like that. Secretly then, but not very secretly, later that night over beers, we were all glad that this wandering hotshot didn't come out and shred our spot on a day that none of us even went out. Was he a pro? No one knows. No one recognized him. He certainly had the kit and the cameraman of somebody who meant business. Regardless, he was humbled that day in a very cold, heavy, beautiful ocean, and I think of him often and fondly. Keep work, Brandon.
Absolutely love it, Brandon. Thank you so much. That is one of the better pros in the wild, even with an unnamed pro, but clearly a pro. Nobody goes and surfs with a sprinter and an inflatable vest and the whole nine and a cameraman.
That was my first thought too, is like, wow, you guys really don't know your pros. But then I thought, no, they probably do know their pros, but there's this modern surfer who shows up at Mavericks and toes into waves who has more hubris than they have experience.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's this guy. Like, this guy's just rich dude who's really into surfing, who thinks that knows what he's doing, has the van, hires the guy, shows up with brand new equipment, and can't even catch a wave.
I hear you, but except for the fact that nobody else was out that day, and to make it out into the lineup, you've got to be like, I guess, I mean, I totally get sitting on the wrong spot and getting smoked, but to go get into one of those Oregon beach break lineups, like, that is hard yards. You got to know your paddle, and you got to be real good at navigating that kind of stuff.
So that's one version of possibility, is that he's really good enough to be able to paddle out into the lineup, even though he was way too far in, not on the actual spot, or he lucked into it.
Lucked into his paddle?
Lucked into timing the paddle out.
Man, yeah. Well, I love that. I was gonna wait for the denouement there, but I'm so glad that it just ended in defeat.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
I was expecting a big reveal at the end, but yeah, this is almost better that this happened this way.
So much better. So much better.
So I wanted to ask follow-up questions like, what type of board was he riding? That will tell me something, like what stickers, were there stickers on the board? What stickers were they? What color was his hair?
We need more. We need more, dear listener. We need more.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure out who this pro was for you.
And what year was it?
Yeah. Unless he doesn't want the pro shamed. Maybe he knew who the pro was too and felt bad later and just thought, that guy doesn't need my shaming.
Yeah. Don't know. I'm okay. Much like the ending of The Sopranos, I am also okay leaving it up to the big unknown.
Except for in this case, we could get to the bottom of this. Inflation vest. I mean, all of this puts it in at least a time frame. Sprinter van, this had to happen in the last 5 years max, right?
Yeah, inflatable vest, sprinter van, possibly. Yeah.
And if there was a cameraman on the beach, again, yeah, we're gonna get to the bottom of this. Thanks.
All right, we'll do our best. The other thing is there's a lot of quote pro big wave surfers who I don't know.
Yeah.
Because like the
Well,
𝗏𝗏𝘃𝗃 contest will happen, and it's like, dudes from Spain or Portugal who like have sponsors and
that's
apparently are
it.
making a living, and I don't
I
know
mean,
who
that's
they
probably
are.
what this guy was, a full-on European big wave surfer. Like even Sebastian Stoy, however you say his last name,
Stutner.
Studner, like is got to be one of the most famous big wave surfers in the world. I mean, he's sponsored by Porsche for pity's sake. He's, on and on and on. I think Tag Heuer, like he's with, you know, blue chip European sponsors. I feel like he goes and he wins awards and gives awards on stage at European gala festivals. And I don't even know how to pronounce his last name.
Never seen him surf a wave other than going straight.
Yeah. And so, but yes, so I think we stumbled upon it. You stumbled upon it. That pro European Nazare-esque pro guy was probably surfing Mavs, heard about this spot, popped up, got smashed, back to Europe.
That's the weird thing though, right? Like the Pacific Northwest, it's not known. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't paddle out there unless you lived in the area and knew the spot. It's a weird,
Unless, unless though he had a bro, he had enough information
yeah,
to get out there.
yeah. It's a weird one, but I got another one that's kind of lighthearted and quick. This encounter took place back in 2012 on my first trip to Bali when I was a naive 21-year-old. I don't think, or sorry, I think it was on the second day of the trip, and a friend and I were getting cash out of an ATM near Uluwatu, trying to decipher the currency and the exchange rate. As my friend was struggling in the little ATM booth, one of my all-time favorite surfers, Rob Machado, pulled up on his scooter and gets in line behind us to get some cash out. I tried my best to play it cool, asking him about the waves, where it was going to be good the next day, just some typical banter, while trying my best not to fan out. As my friend continues to struggle with the ATM, Rob chimes in something about how it can be tough to figure out the exchange rate when it's your first time in Indo. My friend had his back to Rob, and the entire time I was chatting us through the whole painstaking process, not and the entire time I was chatting through the whole painstaking process, he didn't know who I was talking to. When he finally turns around to walk out of the ATM booth, his jaw drops. And with a stunned look on his face, he blurts out, "Oh, Rob Machado," while fumbling in his wallet with his fresh rupiah. I cracked up, and Rob maybe had a slight smirk on his face as well, although I'm not sure. It's probably just a regular occurrence for him. My buddy and I were laughing about it the entire scooter ride back to our little homestay. It was great. It was a great intro to Indo from the drifter himself. Keep work.
Sweet, love it. Rob Machado. He's not the ray gun. He's the hero we need.
Exactly. Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, well, let's cut to commercial break to get a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be back with Barrel or Not. All right, Chaz, we're back.
So good to be here.
I just wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge the loss of a friend of our community. I know some of our friends at the Florida Surf Film Festival were friends with the Daytona Beach surfer Jorge Alvarado, who died while surfing Sunglow Pier.
Yeah, it was
Tragic story.
totally such a tragic story. He, I think by reports, got his leash maybe tangled around the pier and hit his head on the piling or something. And then, yeah, I think he was rushed to the hospital, of course, but I think pronounced dead at the hospital, right?
Yeah, I first thought that it was him trying to shoot the pier and collided with it. And then as more information came out, it seems like maybe he wiped out on a wave and hit the sandbar first, and maybe that
Yes.
knocked him unconscious and then got tangled in the pier. Surfers nearby saw it, thankfully, and dragged him to the beach. And then lifeguards administered CPR. They got him to the hospital, put him on life support, but he passed away. So it seems like the head trauma maybe was the ultimate kind of blow. But I mean, it's just that precarious, life and surfing is that precarious, and head trauma is that serious that you fall into a false sense of security if you've been doing it long enough, but then you get a reminder occasionally that it's that scary.
I mean, yeah, this guy was like no novice kook by any means at all, right? He was a seasoned surfer, from all I can tell, like was out there a lot, loved it, you know, and I mean, I think of all the times that I paddled out and there's you know, a nice sandbar and you're like, sick, little sandbar here, sweet. You know, it feels playful, it feels fun, but man, yeah, it's all dangling very precariously.
Totally precariously. What are your thoughts on shooting a pier?
It scares the tarnation out of me. It is one of the things, like, I'm all about wiping out in water, right? I don't have like a real gut fear, even on bigger waves, you know, of like, oh man, going for a takeoff and late drop and, you know, smashing at the bottom. And it's not that I look for that, but shooting a pier, I'm the kind of person where it's like very specific instructions, I think. Look where you're going. Do not look at the piling, right? You look at the piling, you're going to hit it. You know, when you're snowboarding through trees, don't look at the trees. You look between the trees. You look at the trees, you're going to hit the tree. I would not be able to not look at the piling and just smack right into it.
There was a long period of my life where I thought it was a real badge of honor. Then I was like trying to build up the courage to the moment where maybe I would, you know, go for it.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way at all anymore, and I have no desire to do it. And I don't surf right next to the pier ever anymore to even have the opportunity to do it. But it just feels like a real false or a real unnecessary thing
I'm going to still hold it
attempt.
up. I'm going to still hold it up as an old icon of masculinity and or nobility. Sorry, of femininity too. Of like, it's one thing you can do that is brave, that is takes a real skill, and if you can pull it off, if you can both muster the courage and the skill, anytime I watch a pier shoot, I'm like, ah, dude, he's got it. He's got what it takes.
See, it's not any time I watch it. And first of all, different piers have different distances between the pilings. So some are easier to do than others. But I'm always impressed when it's somebody who's actually surfing the wave through the pier, like doing turns as they go into the pier, you know, or in the pier itself, as opposed to just trying to go straight through and connect the wave on the other side.
Man, that's all I would be able to do. Someday I'm going to go shoot the Huntington Pier.
Well, while we're on Florida, also thoughts and prayers to anybody affected by the Hurricane Helene, I think, or
Hurricane
Helen.
Helene, yeah, seems like a real doozy, though I saw footage from 18 hours ago, I suppose. It looked like the surf was glorious up around Pensacola Way.
Which is a distance away from the hurricane itself. So it's not in the eye of the storm, but it's right where I was up until
Yeah,
Monday. So we just dodged it. But 𝗟𝗍 Lopez posted on Instagram and said, quote, "It was like nothing I've ever surfed before. Rip was 10 knots, wind was 50 knots, wave energy and speed was wild." He posted a bunch of photos from where he's at. And it does look crazy, but it's also flooding. You know, if your house is at sea level, there's people getting just completely ruined. So
yeah.
I'm sure there will be some severe consequence of that. So just acknowledge that as well. This listener sent in an email. He wanted it as a barrel or not, but I'm pretty sure we discussed this thoroughly before. So I'll let you just comment on it. He says, DLS and Chaz, I just got out of the water here. For most of my session, I had this vicious rumble in my tummy. I toughed it out since the surf was fun, but we finally got some offshores here in Northern California, but the discomfort certainly affected my surfing. I had to cut my session short before and jump in or jump out just to get to a toilet. One time, a buddy of mine paddled way out past the break, dropped his wetsuit, and took care of business in the water. I've considered doing that, but anyways, I held it in and then paddled in today. So, barrel or not, the mid-sesh aqua dump, Jonah in San Francisco.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it. Griffin Colapinto made this very publicly famous. I don't see myself able to do it really. Like, and if you're really lurching that hard, like you're not going to want to just like go aqua dump and then paddle right back in. It's like, yeah, I am if if you gotta do that, get out and do it. And then if you have the energy and the stamina, get back in. But otherwise, just get out.
I'm anti-aqua dump. I've had people extol the virtues to me before. I don't get it at all. I'm anti. I'm also, I don't know what grown-ass man doesn't understand their schedule of pooping. Like,
But
I'm
I
at the
see that
point.
time though. I see that time you eat the curry and you think you're okay, and then you feel that rumble when you're walking down. but you think it'll pass, and then it's like, oh man, this is not passing. Like that
You
happens to
err
everyone.
you err on the side of caution. I've had the mornings, again, I wasn't this savvy in my 20s, maybe even my 30s, but at this point in my life, it's like I'm pulling up to the beach and I'm like, okay, I don't feel the need yet, but I know in the next hour I
It's coming.
likely will feel the need, so I'm going to hit the restroom before I paddle out.
I think 9 times out of 10, there's a way around it, but there's that 1 in 10 when, again, last night's dinner and it's your hit or miss. Cause sometimes you miss, right? Sometimes you feel that rumble. It's not 100%. Sometimes you feel the rumble, you get in the water, you work it out. You're like, ooh, feeling good. You're fine, right? Sometimes though, it's not. So it's these tiny percentages like that this happens. And
Okay. So in that tiny percentage, there's no chance that you paddle out the back and
no, zero chance.
it's a clean drop with no wipe. It's going to be a disaster out there that's going to get in your wetsuit and everywhere else. You're going to smell the rest of the day. So aqua dump is out no matter what.
Aqua dump out.
Yeah. Okay.
No barrel.
Agreed. Okay. Barrel or not, let's go. First one, I'm going to pitch it to a listener who is submitting something that I think you and I probably do or have had a conversation with, but not on air.
Hi, barrel or not are emojis, specifically for men using emojis. You know, women use it, and that's fine. You know, it's nice to get a winky face from, you know, your girlfriend, acquaintance, your wife, your lover, or whatever it is. But guys using emojis, I'm just not a big fan of. I've gotten the, you know, the shaka and the, you know, fist bump, and that's okay. That's not terrible. But I don't want to see, you know, a guy sending me like a winky face or whatever, something else. It doesn't happen often at all, but I'm just not for it. It's not the masculine thing. I'm not a huge fan of emojis. I guess it's more personal. I don't even care if women do it, but I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
Lead us off.
100% agree. Dear listener and caller, thank you so much for bringing up this very important matter. You're exactly right. Emojis are feminine speak, and that's nothing against women at all. They're just there's some differences here. I know we don't have to get into that right now, but anytime I see a man emoji user, I'm like, what is going on here, man? Like, and I'll say there's even, I guess if you're a dude who's in 5th grade and has a phone, use those emojis too. Once you get into junior high, emojis like childish things must be put away. And they're childish and feminine. Emojis are. Can't even bring myself. I will write emojis out sometimes. I will send people the text that says thumbs up emoji.
I've gotten that before. I was going to say that to our listeners because it is funny. First time I got a text from Chaz that said thumbs up emoji, I was like, is he typing from a Nokia or like
Nope.
an old Motorola Razor, and he sent an emoji, but it can't. And so it just sent me the text instead.
I wish I was that cool, but no, I have a revolt inside me when it comes to emojis. I can't use them. I totally appreciate their place in communication. I just don't think they are. And again, I don't want to be on thin ice here. I just think they're the opposite of masculine. And if you have any pretense toward being any part manly, you can't use an emoji and then also look at yourself in the mirror.
Well, I think I'm not that staunch about it, but I think there's definite emojis that I never want to receive from another man. And no matter the context. What?
The eggplant.
Yeah, the eggplant would be up there. Even if we're discussing dinner, still not appropriate.
Yeah.
And then what he said, the winky face.
Yeah.
I don't need a winky face ever, regardless of context. The squirt of water, any of the ones with a tongue out.
Yeah.
The tongue out reminds me of the ice cream conversation from 𝗿𝗵𝘀𝘀 a little bit too much. I don't need that. So,
oh man, there was a 𝗿𝗵𝘀𝘀 addendum to the ice cream conversation, which
forgot to play.
We didn't play the call, but it was the user was saying, for those who don't listen, 𝗿𝗵𝘀𝘀, the other show, the non-surfing show, I think airs Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday it airs, or Wednesday, sometime in the middle of the week. Anyway, had a discussion about ice cream. Licking it, I declared was not masculine. Don't do it. Dude said, and my dad did this too. What about biting your ice cream? Which is when you go into your ice cream cone with a full bite out of the gate, totally barrel man style.
It's saying,
Yeah,
yes, I have sensitivity in my teeth.
I don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going to power through this because I'm a man.
Yep. Tough.
Um,
Good. But yeah, back to men using emojis. I say absolutely not. And again, on my other pet peeve, if you fall into using them, ironically, again, nothing is supposed to, you're not living an ironic life. Don't be ironic with your use of emojis. That means just don't use them. I mean, there are some that are appropriate. I hear what you're saying. There's some that are fine, but you look at that text later, you stuck a cartoon in your communication. Let's be honest.
So I have there's an order to things for me with text communications. If I'm totally engaged in the conversation, you will receive a thoughtful and fully punctuated response. If I'm busy and I'm trying to get out of this conversation, or if I'm busy or if I'm trying to get out of this conversation, you're going to get an emoji from me. And it's
Thumbs
up
up.
to you to decide whether or not I'm just busy and I'm driving or I don't want to talk to you anymore. That's on you. And then if I'm totally done, I'll just add the emphasis to the text. And that means end of conversation.
We're over here. Yeah, the people who emphasize text or thumbs up text or love text, I used to hate it. Now I understand that there is some, I don't do it, but I understand there is some value to it because that's what they are, is conversation enders.
Yeah.
They're not, let's not discuss this more, because otherwise you are replying to yourself. You're not even replying to their, yeah, that is a final, tombstone on that conversation.
It's I received your text. I'm acknowledging your text. You're not going to get a reply from me. That's what
Enough
it says.
said. Yeah, good.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I think we're generally going no. Barrel,
Generally no, but yeah.
Non-barrel. Okay, barrel or not from a listener. Riding a motorcycle. Quote, I'm not saying join a motorcycle club or anything, but just owning and riding it. Please keep my name anonymous. I don't know why he wants it anonymous, but
it's such a barrel. Look, I can't say it's not a barrel. You'd want to think if you have kids, definitely. I mean, those things, it's not if, it's when. I remember I taught English, lived in Whittier, and had to drive over the hill. My buddy had a sick motorbike, and I would take that. Eventually the brakes went out, and I was like, who needs brakes? I can just downshift. So I would ride a brakeless motorcycle to and from work. I look back on that and say, man, I was absolutely a miracle that I didn't not get smacked. But there's just no way around it. Riding a motorbike is barrel. It's super cool. And all of the parts of it are cool, even the death wish part. But you trust me, there's no way to do it safely forever. You are going to get whacked. And yeah, unfortunately, you have the story of who Jesse, great dude. Not Jesse, what's his name? Blanking on his name, but he got whacked on PCH.
Oh, Jesse Fan
got whacked on PCH, right? Not doing anything wrong. I think he was whacked by either an errant driver or a drunk driver or something. But is, absolutely destroyed, going to be in the hospital for a long time, et cetera, et cetera. That's what you're opening the door to, but I cannot say it's not barrel.
Well, then I will make the caveat because I agree with you. Motorcycle riding is barrel. Don't do it on the city streets. Like if you have a street bike or a Harley or whatever, and you're riding in the city, you are at the mercy of absolute imbeciles driving vehicles that will annihilate you. And so in the modern era, I would say switch to a dirt bike. And even then there's a certain amount of risk involved, but it is so much fun. It is one of the life's great pleasures. So if you can mitigate all the risk of other people's stupidity and still enjoy in the motorcycle riding, that's the way to do it.
My wonderful friend here just got, I think it's an 1988 or something, Honda Elite motor scooter, which is in great condition. Say what? Driving that thing around just to run errands to the store and stuff gives me as much pleasure as anything. Just needing to go do errands so I can hop on the Honda Elite and whip down to the store. Good fun.
I grew up riding motorcycles my whole life. up until adulthood, I'd say. And I have not been on one in probably 20 years now, and I miss it greatly.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deadly.
So deadly. I've also known a lot of people who work in hospitals, and they're like in the ER, they're just like, dude, nightly.
Yeah.
People come in and you know exactly how they ended up here. And like you said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. If a motorcycle is part of your regular transport in the city,
you're going to get whacked.
You're going to, no matter how vigilant and adept you are.
Yep.
Yeah. Crazy. Okay. Final barrel or nah. Putting half of the chocolate back in the box, meaning you get a box of C's. You're not sure which this one is. They're all unidentified until you cut into it. So you either cut in with a knife and take a bite and leave the other half for somebody else, or just take a bite and leave your tooth marked chocolate back in the box.
I want to say it's not barrel, but it's just one of these things in life that's unavoidably barrel. You get one of those that's gross because you have none of us now, there's hopefully nobody listening to this podcast that's 8 years old that is just like can eat sugar like it's going out of style and be fine, right? I think we all give ourselves, whether it's, like you have it written down or just, but we all, I think, have a gauge of how much sugar we're going to go for in any given day. If you eat that C's that you don't like, now you're going to have to eat another one. You don't want to do that, right? You're like, you don't want to waste your dessert. I'm going barrel. I'm saying you get one that you don't like, throw it down. Maybe you'll come back later. Maybe you'll get a little boozed later and that'll taste good to you. You never know what's going to happen down the road. Saying, leave them.
Do you bite into it and leave it for your wife, or do you cut it with a knife?
I bite because I'm not a fussy little baby. I bite and leave. And if somebody doesn't want to eat my bite mark, I'll eventually come back around to it, likely.
Yeah, because you eat through all the good stuff and then you're having a craving 3 nights later and there's only
you're
one
stuck
left.
for the bad stuff. It's one of those things that should be on the surface, sewn on barrel, but I think it is a non-barrel to eat your candy and just suck it up. This is candy we're talking about. This is all about eat your broccoli and suck it up. Eat your good food and suck it up. Not about eating your candy and sucking it up. The whole point of candy is decadence. Why not just go the extra decadent route of saying, ooh, yucky on this one. I'm leaving that right back there.
So I'm going no barrel. We have a 2-pound box of C's in that house right now. My mom left it for us. And it is my favorite thing in the world. Like as candies go, as chocolate goes, C's candy. I think it's a West Coast thing, by the way.
It's the best. Yeah.
It's the best.
It's the best. Main HQ is I drive past it fairly regularly up in LA. Like there's a actual C's candy factory up there making C's candy.
It's the closest thing we have to Willy Wonka without all the pomp and circumstance.
Mary C.
But the reason why I think it's no barrel to leave a half-eaten candy in there is I've come around to the ones that I thought that I once hated. And I think that it's strictly because it was forced exposure. But I used to hate the fruit ones. Like, you know the ones I'm talking about?
I totally do. Are you talking about fruit like syrup in there, or are you talking about fruit like jellied fruit?
It's like candied, not even candied. It's like, I don't even know what you call them. Not the cordials, not the ones with a liquid in there, but it's like smashed into nougat or some sort of.
Oh, got it. Yes.
Cherry, like maraschino cherry or something in there.
But smashed into something else.
Yeah. But it's distinctly fruity tasting, you know. But I used to bite into that, and that was my least favorite. And I was always looking for like caramel, caramely type ones, or even like I love the almond. What do they call that? Smashed almond paste, marzipan.
Yeah, marzipan. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm down with the nuts too. It's okay if there's nuts mixed in with all that stuff. Those are what I was looking for. But what I realized was I'd be forced. Sometimes it was because it was at the end of the box to eat the fruity ones. And over time, my tastes have shifted. And now I have a really diversified palate when it comes to C's. And I like all of them for different reasons. And I'll even plan out my night. You know, I've got basically a 2 candy quota or 2 C's quota. So I'm not going to have 3, but I want to start with a fruity one and I want to end with a caramel one, or start with a solid with nuts in it and then end with a certain other one. And I've got a whole strategy to it, and it's a joy.
I'm saying don't throw out your C's. I'm saying if you bite the one you don't like, you're going to come back around later. Let's be honest. No C's is left behind.
Never.
All those C's go down the hatch at some point. So you can train yourself slowly to enjoy. Eventually you're going to eat what you don't like, and or you're going to eat what your kids or wife doesn't like as well. So just accept that half C's is going to be part of your life. That's what I say.
Would you ever implement that strategy at a mixed gathering?
No, this is
Okay.
but I'm not about, I think C's are precious, need to be enjoyed in the sacredness of one's home.
Agreed.
C's is not something you bring to a party and then sample and then talk about or think. No, those C's, each one of those is a little journey you're going on.
I've been to Christmas parties though, where that's part of the dessert table. And I think it's even like it was brought as a gift to the host, and then maybe somebody opened it up and made it available. But I fully agree with you. That is not the right environment to enjoy your C's. If I was the host who received that box, I would stash it away, hidden from everybody, and eat it after the party.
I'll tell you, if you go to a party and the host has received C's that the host then lays out for everyone, that host is a bad person. That host is a bad person inside. That person hates C's candy. And I think if a person hates C's candy, they're bad people.
Agreed. Tells you
Yeah.
everything you need to know.
Yep.
Now, final question on this. Do you go for the dark or the milk?
I will typically, there's a good question. I'll typically go for the milk first. I know that dark chocolate is the fancier thing, et cetera, et cetera. The wife only does dark. So I will pivot milk. And you want to know a dirty secret?
You love white.
I don't mind white chocolate.
Disgusting. I don't
Yeah.
mind it either. I don't like it. It's not my preferred, but I don't mind it.
Yeah.
So I used to be all dark all the time, and the milk would be the last ones that get eaten. But again, just like this kind of forced exposure thing, I've come to love milk equally. And what I learned is that it's a common misconception, what you just said. Dark is thought to be fancier. Once you get beyond that and talk to actual chocolatiers, the actual chocolatiers are like, no, milk is the superior chocolate by far.
I was right. That's why white chocolate is number one.
They never said that, but milk chocolate is the superior, most sophisticated of all.
Well, good to know.
I know, man, we were impassioned about that C's candy rant.
So much. We need C's as a sponsor.
I feel bad for anybody outside the reaches of the West Coast who don't have a chance to try it.
Would you feel sad when you got the knockoff C's? There's that one brand, what was it called? It had like a crocheted kind of logo or something. It was something that was not C's, and it was clearly not C's.
Russell Stouffer.
Russell Stouffer. Yeah. It was such a bummer.
Doesn't even come close.
Not even in the ballpark.
Straight to the garbage, dude.
Yep. Russell Stouffer.
Embarrassment. All right. Well, great show once again. And we'll be back on Noble Rot next week on Monday or Tuesday, right?
Come swinging in. If you have not listened, Devin Howard was guest on the last one, sharing style wisdom.
Devin made very uncomfortable by your questioning.
As he should have been.
Yep. So go listen to that if you want to hear Devin be uncomfortable.
Yep, it's good.
All right. Until next week.
Keep work.
All right.